and welcome to tonight's Hot Off the Press. Tonight I'm here with a group of esteemed authors, and they let me come in and play this evening. I'm going to be your host and moderator, Jim Nettles, and tonight I have with me Kathy Lyons, Amy Lane, and Patricia Sargeant. So as we're getting started, we're going to go around the room and let everybody introduce themselves. So, Kathy, I'm going to let you go first.
All right. Well, I am here actually as Jade Lee, but I'm also Kathy Lyons. I write historical romance, paranormal romance, gay romance. I write romance, and I'm really excited to be here. And I'm passing the baton. Can I
Amy.
choose? There we go.
My name is Amy Lane, and I write urban fantasy, paranormal romance, suspense, regular fantasy, a little bit of science fiction, and contemporary. So I'm kind of a subgenre slut.
You do fanfic too.
Yes, I do. I
introduced me to her fanfic.
It's 55,000 words of super bat, if you can believe, Superman, Batman, and they're very hot together.
And Patricia.
So you're gonna have me follow that? Okay.
Yes.
I'm Patricia Sargeant. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much. I write romance as Patricia Sargeant and Regina Hart, and mysteries as Olivia Matthews.
So let's start by talking about the new releases you guys are here with this evening. And so I'm going to reverse the order. So Patricia, what are you starting and bringing to us tonight?
Well, I'm really excited to chat a little bit about my upcoming release, which is Murder by Page One. It's the first book in my new Peach Coast Library mystery series.
That's a great title.
Oh, thank you. You know, it came from one of my colleagues in my local writing chapter years and years and years ago when I was young. She wrote romantic suspense, and she was always saying you have to start with the dead body.
Oh.
Murder by Page One.
That works.
But it's a cozy mystery, and the protagonist is a reluctant amateur sleuth. She's a librarian who's a fish out of water because she's a native New Yorker born and raised in Brooklyn. But for a career opportunity, she relocates to the fictional small town of Peach Coast, Georgia. And she's dealing with all of these Southernisms, and people refer to soda as Coke. She has a lot of that going on. Small town versus big city stuff.
So well, you know, since you've got Peach in the name, you know, it sounds like it's going to be really close to Atlanta. So tell us a little bit about the story. Is the body on page one?
Well, not exactly. It's a there's a little bit of false advertising with that. But in the story, a newly published author is bludgeoned to death. But of course, since it's a cozy, I can't go into all of that. So my editor took all of that out, but that's okay. And the deputies, the sheriff's deputies, think that since the body was found in an independent bookstore, and the independent bookstore owner had altercations with this author, the deputies think that the owner of the bookstore is the prime suspect. Well, she happens to be very good friends. They bonded really quickly with our protagonist, Marve. So she's an independent businesswoman. She doesn't have a lot of money, so she asks Marve to help her prove her innocence. Well, that's all Marve wanted to do. She just wanted to give the deputies some alternate suspects, but they're not listening to her. So then she and her librarian team do research to help find the killer.
How fun.
I know, I had a lot of fun writing it. Thank you.
That's fantastic.
I keep thinking about formatting. It would be great if you had a little corpse that is as every chapter header.
I was
Right?
thinking the
Wouldn't that be
same thing.
beautiful?
Or a little guy with a knife, and then another one with a gun or a sword. You know,
Hey, cozy, Kathy.
oh,
And it's not being written for Clue, so you're not in there with, you know, it was Colonel Mustard in the library with the candle.
well, you know, you could have like his dead feet, you know,
Little
and then like a hand.
I love your enthusiasm. Reel it back in.
And you only get one dead body, right? Isn't that cozy? You only get one or two, maybe two.
Yeah, you could have you could have multiple dead bodies.
Oh,
Because
really?
in the sequel to it, multiple.
Okay.
So in that one, that's going to be murder on page 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Murder everywhere. Murder in the card catalog.
Oh, I don't know. The young people don't know what that is.
You know, that's true. Oh yeah.
That's prehistoric Googling is card catalog.
I used to love those, Davey, myself.
Slide out the little wooden drawer. Little
It's the
paper
entire library.
instead of, you know, death by Google. It just doesn't flow the same way.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. That's by internet search.
So Amy, what are you bringing forth?
Oh, I am bringing, and I actually have a copy of the book.
You rock.
Oh,
Kathy watched me fumble for this last time. It is called Portals and Puppy Dogs. It is book 2 in a series called The Hedge Witch's Lonely Hearts Club. And it was a group of college friends who all got houses by each other when they graduated, right? Because they just had so much fun in college. And they're big, a witch who lived in the cul-de-sac basically shoved her keys into the leader's hand one day and said, "Take care of my house, it might bite." Takes off on a motorcycle and never comes back again. So they start looking into the house, and it turns out to be a witch's cottage. And there's everything from oils to spell books to 9 guardian cats who sit on the lawn and have a self-cleaning cat box in the back. But if nobody's there in the house,
I want one of those.
I know, right? Except if nobody's there in the house, the self-cleaning cat box starts flinging poo at the neighbors' houses, and they don't like that. So somebody has to stay in the house all the time. Anyway, so in the middle of this, Jordan, who's their leader, comes home and he gets his friends together and says, "My love life is crap. I think we're all not getting something we want out of life. Let's cast a Heart's Desire spell." Well, you have all these nice college, not college students. They're just a few years out, and they don't want to cast any. They don't want to want too much. They're like, "Our life is good. Don't want to." So they all lie. Okay. The 2 of them are desperately in love with their crushes, and they ask for something completely different. One couple who really wants to be together, but the wedding is driving them crazy, asks for a good venue. And, they all ask for the wrong thing, right? Okay. And the magic rebounds and their neighborhood goes to hell. The birds start flying upside down. Snakes start hanging from the apple trees, and snakes don't do that. Squirrels start marching in a little infinity symbol across all 3 yards, and their neighborhood has gone to hell. And the only way they found that fixes it is if they confess the thing that they really, really wanted to the people it affects. And there's also, because this is the final book. I mean, this is the second book, but the final couple of the 4-book series, 2 of their roommates who should have been lovers since college, but have not. They've just been roommates, and well, that's my best friend. They have literally dropped into a time pocket, and nobody has seen them. they're eating, they're creating garbage, right? Because they still have, their dog is still there. That's the dog in Portals and Puppy Dogs. But the two roommates have literally, you walk into their house and you'll hear one and see the other, and they're walking through walls. So their entire house has just dropped off this, has dropped into an alternate dimension. And Portals and Puppy Dogs is the second book in which one of the heroes has to confess what he really wanted. And what he really wanted was his hot boss.
I love your imagination, Amy. Wow, that's such a great story.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I have enjoyed these so much. I mean, I live in a boring little suburb. I'm just thinking about the ways a boring little suburb could suddenly scare the hell out of you has been so much fun.
Yes, but the important part here is the dog is fine. Oh, I'm sorry.
See, we have cute dogs. Yeah.
I could see that as a TV series.
Really? Oh.
Keep your phone on.
Netflix.
Oh, yes. Yes. I could totally see that.
I actually can. I watch way too much TV. So I can see like a 4-movie Lifetime movie series or something, and I can see it.
Jade is right. Netflix. Yes. Keep your film right.
Okay.
I have to tell you that I got in my email this morning, not 1, not 2, but 3 different emails from Amazon pitching your book to me.
Wow.
I was like, okay, does she have another new release? Oh, no, it's still the same. Oh, wait, maybe no, it's still the same.
Like I can only
buy so many of your books that it just, they're like, we don't understand. You haven't downloaded this yet. Because I'm reading your other one right now.
Well, I am so glad that you are enjoying my urban fantasy and my paranormal romance. I cut my teeth on paranormal romance, or actually urban fantasy, but I cut my teeth on alternative universe, and I love it so much. I have
and so where does the fanfic come in? Did you start beforehand and
like, you mean the Superbat? I was actually
want to know how you got into writing Superman, Batman fanfic.
You don't have enough time. No, I teach a class on archetypes, and it's literally a 2-hour class. And what it boils down to.
I want to see what your husband looks like. Is he like Batman, or is he Superman, or is he a mixture of the two?
Matt, are you Batman or Superman? He's Batman.
Oh.
Batman.
No, he's not here.
That's when you look and you go, I'm Batman. So
but basically they're okay. Superman is the epic archetype and Batman is the gothic archetype. And if you ever put these guys in the same room, because they do, you've got Justice League, they would hate each other until they banged each other silly.
Bing!
Hey, it's your word. You already gave it.
I haven't said it yet.
Nope.
So, Jade, what are you here to bring us?
Well, coming out on March 3rd is it's technically book 2 in the Lords of the Masquerade series, but that had a prequel, Into the Lion's Den, Lord Lucifer, and then what I really appreciate is that Amy dressed to match my cover.
Woo, Jade Green.
There we go. It's Lord Satyr. It's a Regency romance, so if you like Bridgerton, pick up my series. Our hero, the interesting thing about that is that our hero is broke, except he lives in Lincolnshire, and he thanks to the heroine's help, he figures out that the Lincolnshire daffodil is a rare flower, and that if he can make this rare flower popular, then he can make a mint. Ooh. And my heroine is a blue stocking botanist. And although I never say it, she's actually on the autistic spectrum. She's not bad, but there are certain characteristics of autistic people that she kind of struggles with. And there's that internal need to connect with people, but she doesn't know how. And so we have a project that she can get into of bringing because it's not like they can pop it in a FedEx box. This is 1800. They can't pop it in a FedEx box and have it show up in London. And so there are different ways that they try and transport the flowers to London and make it successful. And it was, honestly, before Bridgerton, I was very leery of writing non-white characters or non-normals. So thanks to the multiculturalism of Bridgerton, I was able to play. I've done other regencies now with different ethnicities, but this one was, a heroine who was on the spectrum, and that was it. It gave me freedom to do that. So yay, Julia Quinn! But pick up my books.
Nice. I have written characters on the spectrum. Well, my family is kind of riddled with neuroatypicality. So I have, and
is that
also
where you get your imagination?
Yeah, right. We're also kind of averse to diagnoses. So I've my older daughter, I've seen this. She is almost supernaturally empathic because she gets so used to reading into cues because her older brother had a communication handicap.
Mm-hmm.
So I love it when you have a situation where there's not a label. There are just this person has personality quirks and they are loved for who they are. So I really love that.
Well, when I was growing up, we didn't know. I have a sister who's deaf and mentally handicapped. She was a rubella baby, or she's still alive. But we just called her a rubella baby. So that was she was born during that wave. And I actually talked to a geneticist, and he said that in 63, it started on one area of the country, 64 was in the middle, and 65 hit the other coast. So it German measles, it was the German and so anyway, so I kind of had exposure to, because she's my sister, so I grew up with her, I had exposure to handicapped people, but everybody else, we didn't talk about autistic. We didn't talk about, and I was the odd one because I was half Chinese. And in my adulthood, and now that this stuff is coming out, I am meeting transgender, and I'm meeting people from all spectrum's the wrong word, all types. And you're right, none of them completely fit one pattern or mold or another. My nephew is dysgraphic, which is dyslexia is the vision, dysgraphic is the eye-hand coordination. And I had never heard of that before my nephew was born. And so yay, diverse world.
Yes. And for the idea that people should be accepted for who they are and loved.
Exactly.
Well, and I think that's an interesting place to go and talk about, is working with characters that are not what we would have seen commercially typical even 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So as you start we're seeing much more diverse characters written into story, and they're not being written into story just to have a diverse character. We're seeing people rounding out worlds much more and exploring, neuroatypical. We're seeing people exploring.
There's the word I wanted, neuroatypical.
You're welcome. You can put a quarter on that one and work with that. But as we see more of this being written into the characters, because as you're working in different genres, different universes, I think that how we see and apply people to create an audience where people can find themselves,
Yes.
I think is important, is we see the world reflected as it is, not what we typically have seen in commercial in commercial publication. So as you guys have been working through that, as we've seen much more what I consider richer and more diverse representative culture coming across. So how are you guys working with that in your own stories? You know, how are you seeing and getting to more of this in your own work? Who wants to take that one first?
Well, I cut off Patricia before, so you can start.
One of the most important things to understand is what you don't understand. So when you approach a diverse diverse characters in your stories, you have to recognize that you can't just put them in there, as you said, Jim, to just have them. How are they going to interact? What is their value to your story? And do you know enough about the culture to include this person in your story? And the tricky thing is reaching out to someone from that culture to help you discover what you don't yet know. You need to have a relationship with your, should we say, subject matter expert. You can't just use them and ask them all of these rather personal questions. So I'm fortunate in that I do have friends who happen to represent a very diverse background. And when I want to put people from other cultures into my stories, I'm always careful to make sure that I'm not being stereotypical with them. But you also have to remember that your one or two or three representatives are not the encyclopedia of Asian people or Native Americans or Hispanic people. They're one or two people.
Patricia, can I ask you what your ethnicity is?
I'm Black.
Have you, I mean, your cozy mysteries, I don't know much about cozy mysteries as a genre. Do they I mean, are your lead characters Black, or do you?
My lead characters are Black, and I belong to a group called Crime Writers of Color. And
Cool.
From that, yes, and from that group, I've been fortunate to read books by, for example, Jennifer Chow, whose main characters are Asian, and there are other authors in the group whose main characters are also from different backgrounds. And I think Jim's point is really important. My big thing is that books really do help, as I'm sure you know, books really do help you bring down barriers.
Yes, I
Build
agree.
bridges. And when other voices are shut out from either writing the stories or reading the stories, then the bridges aren't built and the barriers remain. But you do have to be very careful to recognize that when you talk with one person who may have dyslexia, it's not a monolith. We just have to be careful to recognize that.
That's one of the benefits of being so far along in my career. I've done 60 books and my husband makes a great living. So I am being a lot less careful about what the market will bear in terms of ethnicities or neuroatypical or whatever. That's, so yay.
That's
on
wonderful.
Authors of color, mysteries of color. Yay.
That it's very important, I think.
When I started out my career, 12 years ago, there were not any. There were really very few voices of color in the mainstream that had been, and I was teaching at a very, very racially diverse school. So I would include characters of color as main characters that were like the kids I met and their parents. That these were the, I'd been teaching there for about 18 years, and that this was, I felt very comfortable in this world. As my career progressed and as the world progressed, I felt less and less comfortable doing that, because Black people have their own voices. Latina people have their own voices, and then they didn't need me. My services were not required, because there were plenty of people who could write in their own voices and do a better job. Although I try to keep my supporting cast now as diverse as possible. My own personal experience is buckets of neuroatypicality and vast buckets of crazy. So when we do own voices, you will see bipolar depression, you will see paranoid schizophrenia, you will see weight difficulties, you will see ADHD and autism and Asperger's. You will see all of that, because that I feel at this point, between my children and friends, and I feel more qualified to write those characters. I've written a few on the autism spectrum. I've written a few on the autism spectrum that I very quietly didn't identify. I knew who they were. But also, and part of that, and this is my Amy philosophy, which is that it would be great if we all got t-shirts. Mine would say, "Let me knit anywhere, I have ADHD." Right? And if we all got t-shirts that would tell the world what exactly our problem is and why we are like that.
I don't think mine would fit on a t-shirt.
Right?
Mine just would have warning.
Oh yeah, warning, ... But
it's because we don't, and we have to deal with people as they come at us. I always think that it's learning how to deal with everybody is a life skill, and learning how not to shut them out as romantic possibilities because they have glitches, because they are extremely ADHD, or because they're dealing with their bipolar, or all of those other things. That really is the belief that happy endings are for everybody.
Well, and we actually have a convention in Charlotte called AspieCon, which is geared towards Asperger's and various degrees on this on the autism spectrum, and bringing in authors and creators to fans that are on the autistic spectrum. And it's a really interesting, and it's a small convention, but it's one of those things that has been really interesting to see where the readers and the writers match up. And this is one of those things where, again, I think in terms of voice and seeing neuroatypicality is really important, because I think, again, the more you can explore people, because again, even if the idea is I'm going to be leaving the body on the floor, we really want the stories, because we want to explore the characters. We want people we like. We want to have people we love to hate. We want to see people and characters we recognize. And to me, again, this is all about creating that realistic, rounded out world of, we all have people we love to be around. We all have people that we would prefer never to see again, but for one reason or another, we have to deal with. We have these people, and we go through this. So to me, it's one of those factors of the more of that we put in the books, it brings down, because again, we all write the people we know, because we kill our friends repeatedly. Not all of us kill our friends off. I do, but
Romance.
I kill my old bosses off all the time.
Or in some cases, we match up our friends to go and see, I wonder how that relationship would work. And it's a little bit of, we're going to take dice A and dice B, and we put friend on this list, and we put this friend on this list, and we throw craps and we see who comes up. And, well, that one's not going to work out, but let's explore that one anyway. So as you're going through and as you explore developing the characters you're working with in the new series and in the new books, where are you pulling from to create your people? So Amy, I'm going to pick on you first for this one.
Okay, I'm going to tell a story about one of my most famous characters, and then go from there. My third child, I have 4. My third child was 17. When he was 7, the third teacher in a row in a year pulled us over and said, "It is time to get him assessed for ADHD. We know you've been warned for the last 2 years, but now they'll actually give him medication." And that is how ADHD he was. That they knew in kindergarten, they knew when he was 4 that, he's a wonderful kid. We love him. If he had any attention at all, I'd say he had an attention deficit, but there is none. There is 0 attention to be had. And so we had to go to a thing where it was, it was like 40 hours of medication school while you're giving your kid meds for ADHD and what they're going to do and what kind of effects they could have. People assume that they just throw Ritalin at children like candy. No, you have to go to school to throw Ritalin at your child. And my husband and I were sitting in a room, and I had my knitting with me because that helps me concentrate. And I was doing this, see me bouncing? And I was looking around and thinking 6,000 things. And the psychologist comes in and says, "You're here to find out about medication for somebody who is related to you," which means somebody else in your family. This is congenital. Somebody else in your family that probably already has ADHD. And a giant light bulb exploded over my head. Bing! Turned around to my husband and said, "So, honey, where do you think our son gets this from?" And my husband is a saint and says, "Your father."
Good man.
Right?
Good man.
And that was one of my first indications that, I had already known some of the other things going on in my family, but one of my first indications that neuroatypicality, one of the reasons that it popped up in my writing, was already popping up in my writing, whether I had named it or not, was that my family was really comfortable with it. And so when it comes to that kind of diversity, those are just the things that throw oh, I've got this character and he's fine, but his sister, that's hard. It's hard dealing with a family member who is mentally ill. It is really hard when they're really off the rails. I know from personal experience. Oh goodness, dealing with kids with autism, dealing with kids with Asperger's. When my oldest son was a child, when he was younger, he has a communication handicap. And we were asked to go in and volunteer until he was in the 8th grade. And fully 3/4 of his class. And we watched these children grow from little kids into young adults. And we saw how this had impacted their lives, and how on the one hand, this was a great kid, but on the other hand, we could see how you might not want this kid in a classroom with 40 people. And it's just kind of a fabric of my family. It's a fabric of my former profession as a teacher. And so when I'm thinking of, that moment where my husband said, "Your father," I came up with Patrick. And Patrick was my son at 7, at 24. And all of the things that my son did then and still does now, including this splinging thing where he gets upset and he starfishes out, and he's 6'2". And that's a lot of arms, legs, and elbows to go in 7 different directions when he is upset. He still, every now and then when he sees me knitting, he has, oh gosh, really tight tendons. He was in dance for the longest time and really tight tendons. And I've seen this in other kids with, and I don't know, I've never seen a paper on it, but I've seen this in other kids with neuroatypicalities where he can't bend one of his forefingers. He cannot do a lot of the stretches his dancing teacher asked him to. He had to work and work and work and work, where it came very easily to other kids. And still he'll see me knitting and he'll touch my fingers to see why my fingers are doing that. And he used to do that at 7. So Patrick does those things. He will touch someone's fingers just to see what they're doing.
And which book is Patrick in?
Clearwater. And I had already written an ADHD character in If I Must, and I hadn't realized it. I had just written someone with my kind of problems with time. And I had already written people with someone with bipolar, and I'd already written someone with schizophrenia. And those were just people I had to deal with my family. I just didn't realize that's what I was dealing with. So when I'm writing characters who have that in their lives, it has to be very, very organic. It's been very, very organic for me.
But it helps both you because you're processing through.
Yes.
As well as, and I think this is true for any writer. You write the things that help you process out. I mean, even if it's on spec, you're going to include the things that you're trying to process or work out, no matter what you're doing or dealing with.
100%.
Yes, absolutely.
So what about you, Kathy? Where are your characters coming from?
As Amy said, as the market and the world has changed, I don't put in Black characters anymore into my books because I don't have personal experience to the depth that I would want. But I do Asian characters because I'm half Chinese and I have, a ton of Asian relatives to draw on. But the most interesting thing that people have found with my books, I am face blind. I don't see faces. I see body shapes, hairstyles, voices, and body movements. And that's how I categorize people, just meeting them. And so in my books, there's like a rhythm to my characters. Once they're built, they feel and they speak with a certain rhythm and whatever their issues are. And I have to be reminded. I write down blue hair or blonde hair, blue eyes. You write down the basics, and I don't talk much about skin tone. I don't talk about the characteristics of the face because I don't see them personally. And so, it's the character, it's the rhythm. I know people by the rhythms of who they are, for lack of a better word. And so this character, who is me, I characterize by the hands, and others I don't. It's not the hands, it's the way they hunch or the way they talk or whatever, but it is rarely face structure or skin tone or any of that. So I don't know if that answered your question.
What about you, Patricia? Where are you pulling the body from on the floor?
Just a foot.
Really effective. Most of my characters come from experiences that I've had at various day jobs. But it's interesting hearing Kathy talk about not seeing the face, because for me, a lot of stuff happens in the face. And I notice I do a lot of reading of my characters' eyes, and if their facial muscles get tense.
I see that. I do like the tense. That's part of movement for me.
Interesting. Because it would be part of movement now that you say that. Yeah. Oh, it's very interesting.
So, go ahead.
I was going to say, I get face blind. I actually had to look up craft books for how to describe people's faces because I was not great at it. When I taught, and this was something, it crossed racial barriers. It was, if I had a 5'2" blonde girl in period 1 and a 5'2" blonde girl in period 3, I would interchange their names on a pretty regular basis.
Me too.
But, it was like, okay, Sandy and Gretchen were going to be Gretchen and Sandy. And sometimes I would look at one and think, that's Gretchen. No, that's Sandy. And I would literally get frozen. And I would have to warn classfuls of kids, guys, I'm going to look at you and I'm going to say the wrong name. And if I am asking you to stop that, I fully expect you to stop that, even if your name isn't Richard. And I will pick one thing about somebody, and make that kind of that's your touchstone for that character, and do that. For Patrick, it was his stiff hands. For Whiskey, it was his deep voice. Whiskey was Patrick's beloved. For Alex in Portals and Puppy Dogs, he's a ginger. It's funny, I have stopped basing my self-esteem on how well my books do based on cover art, because it's an easy trap to fall into. One of the things I've noticed is gingers sell like crap.
I was told that blonde men on covers sell like crap.
Really? I believe that.
Ginger women sell well.
Yeah, ginger men sell like crap. It's odd. I've had I think he's my third ginger in 100 books. And the first one that it was the Johnny series, which is one of my best-selling series. And
great series. Highly recommend it.
Thank you. But book 4 is John, and John's a ginger. And he was a ginger throughout the entire book. And he's a ginger in Florida, which means that half the book was him worrying about.
That's not why that book didn't sell well.
Well, it could have also been that John was a douchebag.
It is a redemption book. It is fantastic. But he was a not nice person in the first 3 books.
He was super high. Okay. He was a cocaine addict and he sold his best friend's ass for drugs.
And see, not quite a good lead into I must read this guy's happily ever after.
But it was also the ginger on the cover.
That's what is it? That's it's not causality. It's
that's correlation, not causation. Just because you made him a douchebag and a ginger.
There we go.
I mean, how is somebody supposed to redeem themselves from that?
I mean, you can change your hair color, but
no, Amy, I'm gonna have to side with Kathy on this one.
But you gotta read Dex in Blue, and then you read John's redemption arc, and his remorse is unfathomable. You cannot when he realizes what he's done, and yeah.
Well, to kind of loop back around into the new releases just a little bit, as you were working on the books, what's kind of the one big surprise that came out of it for you as you were working on it? The one thing you were like, huh, okay. Was it something you found about the book, the character, the story, yourself as you were working on it? You know, kind of what was that one big huh? So as people are out there, because they cannot help themselves but to go pick up these copies, what's the one thing that they're going to be looking for in the book and they're going to go, oh yeah, that's what they were talking about?
Well, for me, it was for Lord Satyr, the heroine is on the spectrum. I never say it. I never, but as I was grappling with that, by the end of the book, it's like, okay, I think I did a good job. And then I sent it to actually my publicist, who has many autistic people in her family, and she read it and she loved it. She said it was fantastic. And it was very reassuring. So the idea that I could build an autistic character, and I mean, she has some real strengths and, you know, obviously some weaknesses, but it made her more than just the typical, you know, Regency heroine. And I could do that. And I'm very proud of that book. It's a really good book.
What about you, Patricia?
Oh my gosh, I have nothing for you.
It's a cozy mystery. The body hit the floor, the foot poked out.
And he dies on page 1, so.
No, that was the lie.
It's page 1-ish.
Ish.
Page 1 in the big print edition.
There we go.
In the Kindle version, because it's all just one page now.
There we go.
If you fast forward on the audio version.
What about you? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I did really enjoy writing the book. And one of the reasons that I wanted to write the book is to help people to understand why libraries are so important to communities and how libraries support communities. And I had a good time even just weaving that into the story.
Because we always find dead bodies in the local library. Is that it?
No, that was the bookstore.
Oh, the bookstore.
If you want to avoid the dead body.
Oh, to go to the library to avoid the dead body.
Nobody ever dies in the library. You take them to the bookstore. It's like Disney.
And there's a title of her next book. Nobody dies in the library.
No one dies. I love it. No one dies in the library.
Murder, but not in the library.
It looks like the body's been moved. Look here.
There's always a snitch.
Who knew there was still a card catalog to find that on the body? So
It's a clue.
it's a clue. What about you, Amy?
Let's see. One of the things is that I'm not destined to be a witch. I always say that I'm pagan, and I am, and I have friends who are very good at taking their amethysts out and replenishing them by moonlight, and to witness all of the pagan rituals, and those are for people with a sense of time. Okay, you can tell me the date of Imbolc and that's fine, but I'm not going to remember it's Imbolc until all of my friends go happy Imbolc, and I'm like, oh crap, that's January 28th, right?
Okay, I'm ignorant. What's in bulk?
It's kind of a transition holiday. It's literally the day you leave all of your dead grievances to rest.
Oh.
So also, you know, it's
Also the dead body.
Cool, and yeah, there are eight major holidays on the pagan calendar. Don't ask me to remember them now, but there's Samhain and Beltane and Mabon and Imbolc and Letha, and I think I've forgotten 3. But the thing is that there are 1,000 different things to remember. What crystals do what color candles do what color thread does what, and I am ill-suited for absolutely all of it. Um,
Is Imbolc always on the same date, or does it move around like Easter?
I think, okay, I think Imbolc is always on the same date. It's like, it could be.
My mother-in-law says, check St.
Reference, I have a
Google.
reference for with, I think it's close to the same date, but it does revolve around the moon.
Oh. And you leave your grievances behind.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No holding grudges.
No holding grudges. Well, there's, laying the old year to rest, and then there's the restarting your spirit, and, that kind of thing.
I would struggle with that. I would struggle with that.
Yeah. Don't we
That's
all?
why we have most of those. That's why most of those rituals exist.
Yeah.
That's actually true.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of them, but like I said, I don't know what day it is on any given day. I rely on my email inbox to do things like this. On that level, I'm a very bad witch.
And we have your next book title.
Yeah, right.
It was the very bad witch that got on her mind, that handed over the keys and said, "Here, you deal with this."
Oh yeah. Her motivation pops up in book 3, and basically she was kind of saving her own life, but it was but yeah. Anyway, so there's a book 3 and a book 4. And there are 4 happy couple, or actually there's 5, but one of them is het, so they don't get their own book.
Well, so let's have one more round here. What's the one fun thing that you wrote into the book that anybody reading really should be looking for? That's the fun part of the story.
Why are you asking us all of these hard questions?
I know.
Understand that we wrote these books like 6 months to a year ago.
The original title of this was The Shadow Ate My Dog.
I like that title.
I did too, but it didn't fit into the series,
You're the right one that does fit that title. You can't leave that title on the table. Oh my gosh.
Well, the idea of it, and it wasn't, it's like I had the idea of the head witches, of the head witches getting together and casting the spell that went horribly wrong. And then I had back when I was walking my dogs at night, when I still trusted my neighborhood, and I do not anymore. Well,
I'm sorry.
Let's just say that 2016 did a lot of eye-opening for a lot of us. And I know, but back when I still trusted my neighborhood, I would walk the dogs at night, and they would disappear into a shadow. And I thought, what if the dog runs in and the leash goes slack? And the dog just completely disappears. And on the one hand, it's hysterical because, and then on the other hand, it's also a little creepy, and there you have your mystery. So that idea got made into this book as a extension of and what if that had something to do with that spell that went horribly wrong?
Oh,
that's pretty cute. Well, staying with the pets, my heroine has a cat who is not taking well to the moose.
Oh.
So the cat stops reading the newspaper and does a bunch of other really not so cool things.
Oh no.
Start swatting everything off. Especially the breakable things.
He's not destructive, but he packs up his stuff and tries to run away from home.
Oh.
He's having trouble. But the solution, I think, is very helpful for pet owners. And she finds out about the solution after she takes her cat to the vet.
Nice.
See, excellent. So this is a 2-for-1. You get your pet care guide and you get the body on the floor.
There you go.
On page 1-ish.
Should I go?
Oh yeah, please do.
I did not have a pet in my book, but in Lord Satyr, but I have a scene in the moonlight. It's not quite a love scene. It's it's this close, but it's not quite. And to do an autistic character or interpret the love scene, it was outdoors in the moonlight. It came from a very different perspective. You're in her point of view as she's experienced kissing and a little bit more for the first time, and just to do that from her mindset was everyone who's read the book has gone, wow, that was a hot scene. So I'm very proud of that.
Oh, lovely. I'm looking forward to reading that.
Well, guys, we've been going for about an hour. So I want to thank you guys very much, because I think it's been great, both talking about the new books, but also really the deep dive kind of we went through on characters and life and what this means for you guys as writers. So
wait, I promised I would ask all of you guys your favorite curse words. I did.
Douche nugget.
Yes.
Fudge.
What?
Fudge.
Really? Well, you do write cozy, so okay.
That is the curse word of a cozy writer right there.
There we go. Fudge. Jim?
go for it.
No, we're asking
Oh,
yours.
mine? Oh, yeah, that's a long list. In a couple of languages. And I'd hate to steal yours.
Okay. I told them ahead of time that my favorite one was fuckity fuck fuck. And if I said it really fast, then it can be one big bleep.
Half a style point. Half a style point.
Oh.
Darn.
Well, I really appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out with us for this evening. And for everybody out there that's been watching, we have definitely added to your reading list tonight. So I want everybody to let everybody know where we can go and find you guys. So we're going to go in reverse order because, why stick to protocol? Patricia, where can we find you? Social media, websites, where can people come hang out and, say hi?
Well, I'm on Twitter at Books by Patricia, and I'm on the internet at patriciasargeant.com, and Facebook, Patricia Sargeant 9.
Amy?
That's the page of the real murder.
Was the first 8 iterations?
Attempts. They were attempts.
Let's see. My webpage, which has all the other stuff nested on it, is amylaneromance.com. My Facebook group is where I am most active, and it's Amy Lane Anonymous on Facebook. And we play. It's all yarn memes and cute boy memes and just we play. Every now and then someone has a WTF Wednesday post. As there's a lot of Swedish disco that pops up on Wednesday. I don't know why. It is definitely WTF.
Okay.
But you can find me on Twitter at Amy Mac Lane, because there were a gazillion Amy Lanes, so I had to stick my real name in the middle.
And Kathy?
I am at jadeleeauthor.com. I had to add the author because Jade Lee is actually was a really big porn star. So jadeleeauthor.com. KathyLyons.com goes to the same place. I have a good story about that too. My mom asked me if I released a new book that was titled Pussy Man's Escape from LA. And I'm like, Mom, that's a movie. That's not mine. See, now you'll never forget kathylyonsauthor.com. And then all of my Facebook and Instagram and all of that is embedded in there. My Jade's Jewels is my Facebook little group. And I should be doing WTF Wednesdays and stuff. that's a good idea.
And you ought to see if you can do the novelization of the film.
There we go. I did have a publicist suggest I get in touch with her so that we could share mailing lists. And I was like, I don't think her audience reads.
And I've been honored to be your host this evening. I am Jim Nettles. You can find me at jamespnettles.com, authoressentials.net, and of course, here at ConTinual. Thanks, guys, for coming to hang out with us this evening, and it's been a great conversation. And we'll see you guys again soon.
Thank you. Thank you.